Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girls podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Loading, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. Well, here we are, another episode of Starter Girls podcast, another awesome guest coming on today. So excited about this conversation. I'm going to open up with this. In a world that rewards speed and constant output, what if the real power comes from learning how your brain works? My guest today believes that by understanding and shifting the patterns that hold us back, anyone can develop resilience, clarity, and stronger connections, whether at work, in business, or in life. And so we're going to be chatting with him in just a few minutes. He's got some interesting work. I'm so excited to dive into this today. But before I bring him on, I do need to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Productions. Need to add excitement to your YouTube videos or some expert hands for editing? Look no further. Walt Mills is the solution you've been searching for. Walt is not only your go-to guy for spicing up content, he's the force behind a thriving film production company with numerous titles in the pipeline. Always on the lookout for raw talent, Walt is eager to collaborate on film and internet productions. With a background deeply rooted in entertainment and promotion, Walt Mills leverages years of skills to give you the spotlight you deserve. Want to learn more about Walt and his work? Head on over to waltmillsproductions.net and let your content shine. All right. And with that, I do want to make a mention to head on over to startergirls.com. I say this every single week. And the reason being is because three things. One, if you've missed any of our episodes, it's a great place to catch up on those. You can also sign up for our community newsletter, stay in the know of what we have going out, what's coming up. And then, of course, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, creator, maybe you're in the thick of it and you want to find out what your number one success block is that may be impacting your success, well, guess what? I've got you covered. I've got a 2-minute quiz over there that I've developed that you can take, and it's fun. It'll tell you what may be impacting your business right now. So head on over to startergirls.com. And as I always say, do whatever you need to do. All right. And with that, we're going to bring our guest onto the show. So here we go. Mitchell Weisburgh is the creator of the Mind Shifting Method, a neuroscience-based framework that teaches leaders, teams, and individuals how to rewire their brains for resourcefulness, resilience, and collaboration. Drawing on decades of experience in education, leadership, and human performance, Mitchell provides actionable tools that help people think clearly under pressure, overcome limiting patterns, and achieve lasting growth in every area of life. And so, Mitchell, welcome to Starter Girls. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for having me on. And I've been listening to a couple episodes just to come up to date. And I'm kind of honored. I was listening to Ari Medrano.
Oh, yes.
And, she was such an inspiration. That was such a great episode. And then I was listening to Brian Gile. And there were so many parallels between how he looks at how we can rewire our brains and what I've done. So.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That was, oh yes. And you got to see the difference in the episodes too, because one we went in studio, and it's such a beautiful thing, this podcasting. I was just telling somebody before you jumped on in the previous episode that when I started Starter Girls, we were in studio, we had the fancy equipment, did all the cool things. And then of course, COVID hit, went back home. And then I learned, hey, you know what? Great thing about this online platform now is you can talk to people all over the world. So it's a beautiful thing, right? Well, then I'm hosting, or I'm partnershiped in some other creative, things, including a networking event. And one of the places that I do that, they can do podcasting. And so now the beautiful thing is I get the best of both worlds. I get to still talk to everybody all over the world, but then my local people, we can go in. And so, yes, Ari, phenomenal, friend and guest, and just I had such a great time chatting with her. She's such a powerhouse. And then Brian Zhao, oh my gosh, he's great too, like 8-time world record skydiver. Right. I have no desire to skydive, so it was just fun getting to talk to him and just be like, how do you do that? How in that space. So anyway,
yeah, you wonder how somebody ever got the idea. Something, I'm a little bored today. Maybe I'll jump out of a plane.
Yeah. That's one thing. I have no desire to do any. I'm a brave soul. Will do a lot of things, in business and that kind of stuff. But those heights things, nope, none of that. Don't want to do it. No bungee jumping, no jumping out of planes, none of that. Don't care. So anyways, Mitchell, I'm so excited to chat with you and just talk about your work and what you're doing. And you have such an impressive, full disclosure. I went back today before you jumped on and went back and looked at your stuff to see your background. And you've done a lot of impressive things yourself. And so I'm glad that you're able to come on here and talk about your journey and what you've learned and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, my mission, and it's kind of plastered all over my website and my books and stuff, is that, I think that if we could get a critical mass of people on this planet who really understand how their brains work and how to get into resourceful modes, how to be able to come back when things don't work, how to be able to work with people even when they disagree, that if you have those core skills and a critical mass of people, we could change the whole world. Everybody would be leading better lives and everybody would be happy. And so that's really my mission, and kind of arbitrarily chose 5 million as kind of what the critical mass is. So somehow or other, we've got to get 5 million people on this planet to have those skills. And then that will then, I guess, ripple across the world so that everybody will start, living better lives.
Yeah, you just gave me chills. Okay, so just real quick. So the guy before this, he is in marketing. And oh my gosh, we had such a powerful conversation too. We learned we had like different stories, but some, parallels. That is the beautiful thing about this podcast, is that everybody that comes on here, I feel like sort of kind of shares that same message. But he had this deck of cards that he created. And he was telling about how when he was a kid, he wanted to be a magician. And so he pulls these cards out and he's like, tell me when to stop. He stops and he pulls it out and he turns it around and it says, what are you fighting for? That was the question. He said, so what are you fighting for? And I paused for a minute and I said something like, to give people hope that they can change the course of their lives, that they can do whatever they want. They just have to make a different decision. And so then we went into this whole thing. And then I said, and maybe for selfish reasons, because I believe that when, people are thriving and happy, then my world is better.
Yep. Is it? Well, I think, and I think that, for neurologists kind of understand that when you are, actually, I'm thinking in two different directions. So on one, when you're around people who are enjoying themselves, your mirror neurons are also triggering, having fun. And you're enjoying yourself also. And also, when you help somebody, then the joyful hormones in your brain kind of they go off, and you get this jolt of serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin and the endorphins, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was fun. And so it's this twofold effect: one, being around other people who are doing good stuff and living great lives, and that that gets your mirror neurons doing that. And two, when you start doing it, that further reinforces it, because, you're releasing those happy hormones yourself.
Yeah. So it's a win-win. So the point here is that there's science behind this, why you need to be selective and you need to be helping. So we're doing good work because we're really trying to make people happier, and it's a science behind this. I love it. I think I've known this, but never really thought of it in terms of that. You know what I mean? And so it makes perfect sense. And that's why, if you think about even the psychology of, like, people will hang around people that think about, like, we hang around like-kind people because if we're in that space, we're going to feel comfortable, right? We're going to be happy in that space because we're comfortable in that space. And when we get out of that, we have to grow a little bit. And then we have that discomfort again. I think this is so important. And I love that you brought that up, and I don't even know where, I want to go with that, because it's so good. I never thought of it in terms of that. I just thought of, hey, he asked me that question. And I thought about, why am I doing that? But to your point, where I was going with that is that the work that we're doing is that we recognize that when people are thriving, they're happy, and the world is a better place because they're more agreeable, and they respond in a healthy way. They have more emotional intelligence. It's just. And they have more empathy for people that they don't necessarily agree with, or that have differing views and all of these. And so what you're talking about is so important in just so many, it's really important in all the facets of our life, whether going back into education, careers, family, friends, right? It's all across.
Yep. Well, so I'm just going to like focus in on the mirror
Absolutely.
neurons part of it for a moment. And, the mirror neurons, they're evident in all mammals, but even more so in people. And what they pick up on more than anything else is the emotional status of the people that we're around. So by default, our mirror neurons, when we're around happy people, that makes us happy. By default, when we're around people who are upset or people who are angry at us, we
Yes.
get angry also. And
Right.
so those get triggered. Like, um, well, again, I'm going in two different directions, but in one direction, it's with these mirror neurons, we actually have a choice of whether we're going to use our default or whether we're going to influence the way our mirror neurons are perceiving. And so if we're around people who are angry at us, our mirror neurons are going to influence us to be angry back.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, you're trying to influence another person. Maybe you're trying to sell somebody, or maybe you're trying to manage somebody, or maybe it's a child that you have, or a spouse that you're saying, I'd like you to do this. And what their mirror neurons pick up on, if we're not very careful, their mirror neurons pick up on that we are attacking them. Because whatever they're doing, we're trying to get them to do something different. And by default, they're going to be picking up, oh my gosh, this person is attacking me. And then that gets us into our survival instincts, which are to attack back, right?
Yep.
Or to flee, or
Yep.
or to hide or run away. But they get us into these survival instincts, and then that escalates because we pick up that they're attacking us, and then we attack back. What we have as people, and Brian Giles kind of got into this also, but we have the ability to recognize what we're feeling and thinking, this self-awareness, or you might call it, metacognition.
Right.
But this self-awareness to say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling upset right now. And to be able to say, I don't have to feel upset. I could feel curious right now.
Right.
So this person, I tried to help them. They felt that it was an attack. Now I'm feeling the same thing. You know something? I don't have to feel this way. I can change my whole demeanor. What if I tried to be empathetic with them? What if I just tried to understand what they're feeling right now? And so that changes the whole course of the conversation. And it changes things that would have been fights, would have been conflicts, into the opportunity for, say, collaboration and moving forward on goals.
Yeah. You mentioned something in there too, which I feel like is a universal thing. Those of us that are, I feel like and I want to say something. I love that you're bringing the neuroscience into this, right? Because a lot of us talk about this, but I think, when you get back to like, let's talk about even just like left brain, right brain, right? Like that's the beautiful thing about this podcast is that we get people on here and there's a lot of resonating patterns you'll hear in the different episodes, right? But we all kind of express it in a different way. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this is that you're kind of bringing this neuroscience. And so for those people who are really into the science aspect or really that logical thinking, this is, to me, I love it because I've never quite thought of it that way. Like I hear what you're saying. I totally get it. I talk about this in my work, right? Like reframing and you mentioned curiosity, which is so important because yes, we have the choice in that moment to go, I'm going to react or I'm going to pause and be curious and start asking questions or start saying, why is this person reacting this way? And how can I show up differently? Right. And that's where I think that power of that pause comes in, which is one of the things I love to talk about because I've had to, as a quick thinker, mover, like everything I do is very fast. I've had to learn to just sometimes, Mitchell, just pause, just take a minute. And I'm not uncomfortable saying, you know what? I'm afraid what I'm going to say next or what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pause. I'm going to just not do anything right now. I'm just going to, allow myself some time to reflect and go, okay, where is this person coming from? What's happening right now? How do I want to show up? you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So I love that you're bringing it from that perspective, because I think it's a logical perspective for people who are very in the logical space. And that's what I always like to tell people here is I am a practical optimist, meaning I bring the logic, but I'm also an optimist. And I can't, we're going to think big picture. We're not thinking down here. So I love it. And so this mind shifting, I want to know, I guess, a little bit about how this worked, because background education, I looked at your,
Hmm.
your career is amazing. Tell us a little bit about how this came about for you.
Well, so I have a background from work in instructional design and in systems design. I was working very closely with education publishers and education technology providers to increase the use of technology in schools so that schools could better prepare kids to live great lives. And I was doing that for 15 years. And at the end of 15 years, I'm like, when I started this, schools weren't really preparing kids to be adults. And it's 15 years later, and yes, we're using more technology, but schools still aren't preparing kids to be great adults.
Right.
So
Right.
so where's my influence? What am I really doing? And so um, I guess I was given an opportunity, and I was supposed to talk about education technology to a bunch of undergraduates. And I just decided, something, that's not what they need to hear. What they need to hear is what makes successful people look at situations differently. How do they make sense of situations so that they come up with solutions? How do they continue with those solutions despite the fact that the first thing that they do doesn't necessarily work? And then how do they continue? How do they motivate people to work with them, even though people's natural inclinations are to resist change and to strike back? And so I put together about 2 days worth of materials to teach these undergraduates that, just because they think something doesn't make it true. Although you can't say it directly like that.
Right.
Just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean they're wrong. And just because you did something and it didn't work doesn't mean that you failed. And
Exactly.
so I read, I guess, books on economics, which is, it's a type of decision making, psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, military strategy. So from all these different fields, and I just felt as I'm reading all these different fields that every field has its own message, but nobody seemed to be putting it together from all these different areas into something that really made sense. And so I try to take things from military strategy, from psychology, from economics, and pull them together into a way of thinking about how we make sense and how we act that kind of fit um, the way we all think as people. So I pulled that together. I teach the 2 day class, and at the end of the 2 day class, I'm like, and that's mind shifting. And 60 kids stood up and cheered.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was like, so this is something, when people hear these techniques, they immediately recognize, oh my gosh, this is really why this hasn't worked. Or a lot of us, and if we're adults already, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever, we've done many of these things. We haven't realized why they've worked, and we can't necessarily go back to them and use them every time we're faced with a situation. But by naming them, by having an easy way to refer back to them, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is a case. I'm sure I can't do this. I'm going to try the perhaps I can technique, and I'm going to learn how to do this. Boy, I'm having this disagreement with the person. You know something? I'm going to step back. Why don't I approach this from curiosity and start asking open-ended questions, just like motivational interviewing, to be able to connect with this person and then move forward before trying to convince them, and that's not working. So anyhow, so the kids stood up and cheered, and it's like, something, this is really what I was meant to do. All this work on education technology, that wasn't really moving the needle. This is something that can really move the needle. And so since 2019, I've been, I started moving away from, working with education publishers and schools to mind shifting. And I first started with classes. So I changed it. instead of a 2-day course, they changed it to 3 different courses for each on a different element of mind shifting, and then move those classes online. So I'm, live online through like Zoom sessions. And then I was thinking, well, where could I have the most influence? It's like, well, what if I taught teachers? Those teachers are going to reach the kids, and that's going to get the next generation. So my classes are primarily for teachers, but business people, other people take the classes also. And then from those classes, it's like, well, maybe I should write a book. So I wrote the first book, which is on the resourcefulness part, and I've written the second book, which is on working with other people, conflict and collaboration. So those 2 books are basically done. Well, the first book is out. The second book will be out within a month or so.
Okay.
And then the third thing is to put them into online courses so that I don't necessarily have to be there in each course. And so we're just finishing the first course, which will have AI mentors, which will walk people through the different techniques.
Love it. Okay, I have like so many things to say.
Yeah,
It's so good. You were giving me chills when you were talking about it, because I am like, oh my gosh, like, first of all, I love that you have brought in all these different perspectives, like researched all these different things, because I think, you had this big question, and this is, I feel like, okay, first of all, I'll say something about education. I have often said that I think my daughter's a teacher, is a bilingual teacher here. My sister's also a teacher. I know they work hard, and I recognize the struggles, especially now, with everything that's going on, the things they're having to deal with. But I feel that I've always said this, even when we were kids, that we teach more to testing than we do anything. We don't teach kids life skills. They have, especially now with technology, they have phones and everything. They don't really have to communicate very much anymore. And so I have often felt in my own space that, we don't teach them how to engage with other people or how to solve problems, in real, I mean, maybe in some capacity, we do, but I feel like there's not enough emphasis in that area. So I love that you are bringing this into that space where if the teachers can understand this, then they can help their students be better and more effective as they move out, right? Move out. But there's so much to this. And I really love, like I said, that you brought in the different perspectives, because I think, like you, my work is similar, a little different, but I feel like it's the same kind of thing. It's this understanding of people. It's trying, like me, it started with me understanding when I got I got diagnosed with a nerve condition in 2012. And I had no idea at the time that was going to that was my entryway into all this exploration. But what happened is it really was my own journey, understanding why this had happened to me, why I had to go through this. And then it became more, how did I contribute to this? Okay, how did I have a role in this? Then it became more of, what was I doing in how was I showing up every day? And how was that affecting? And then so what I'm saying to you is that was an entry point, but it led to this bigger questioning. And what I found was that there were a lot of things going on in my world that were contributing, like patterns of behavior, belief systems, how I was showing up. When I told you about the pausing, reacting to everything, being overly reactive about everything, allowing everything to affect me emotionally. And so that's where, like, this is where your work, the stuff you're talking about, comes in, because what I started realizing is that we ourselves, we affect everything. We affect not only the people around us, but we affect our health, everything that goes on in our world. We can't control everything, but we have a large part. Like, I was talking to a guy the other day that was talking about, like, our DNA genetics is only a small part of really our health, that a lot of it we are controlling environmentally. We're controlling by what we're doing. So think about the work you're talking about and how we're showing up, how we're responding to people, how we're engaging. And so that's really, like, I feel like we come into the big picture is what you're talking about, how we respond and collaborate and deal with people and emotion, but our entryways are different. That's what you see. What I feel like, our entryways. Mine was, I had this health thing that was about me. Like, first, like, I'm a victim, and now it's about, how am I contributing to this, and why do I have these repeat crash and burn cycles in my life. Like why was I having these patterns of behavior? And how is that going into a larger picture of now, how am I treating myself, treating other people? How am I showing up? How am I responding? How's my emotional intelligence? How am I allowing, belief systems to dictate, how I'm, so all of these things you're talking about, I love it. And you're bringing the science piece to it. I just think there's so many great things with this information.
And I'm listening to your story, and that's incredible. It's like you took something that the vast majority of people would just have regarded as a disaster, right?
Yeah.
And you developed your self-awareness and strength to be able to say, well, wait a minute, what are the gifts in this? What is this going to make me think of about myself and my place in the world, or my place in the universe?
Right.
And how am I going to then use this gift to help other people? And that's what you've done. That's like,
yeah,
that just made my heart just go, like it is so cool.
Yeah, I love the word. I was just telling Steve and the guy I was talking to before. I said, this is why I love the podcast, because I feel like, one, I get to have incredible conversations with you guys. I meet so many amazing people all over the world. I have learned, I've interviewed probably a little over 500 people between my show, all the shows I've done. I have learned so many things from doing these podcasts. The power of the pausing, learning to just sit back and not talk, just pause for a moment, and it's taught me so many great things. I love the conversations, but I think, the big thing here I tell people is that really the whole thing with this show is how do we help people thrive? It's like your message. It's like, how are we helping people be better human beings and be able to communicate and to live lives they want and to thrive and to be in the right space? And you guys are all, voices, the extensions of that big message. And so the beautiful thing is, I think we get to like quadruple what we're doing here. Like you're talking about this, how many people you're trying to impact. And really, we're kind of doing sort of the same thing in just a little bit different ways, but we get to tap into, all of these different markets. And so, I think it's a great thing, what you're doing. And I feel honored that you're here talking about, and that you found that space to do that. Cause sometimes, we all have different entryways. That's my point. We all have these different ways that, and the curiosity, I think, is, I will tell you, in that word is, it comes across in a lot of conversations with this work that we're talking about. The reason I've been able to do what I do is because I'm curious. I'm always curious. If there is something going on, I'm always curious. I'm curious why people do what they do. Like there was a story here in Texas about a road rage. And immediately I go and I'm looking up who are the people that were involved in this. I want to know who are the people. And then I want to understand, because the guy that was a shooter, I don't want to get into all of this, because then that'll draw like all the different people out for the crazies, which I don't want to do. But the guy that ended up doing the shooting is a guy that lives in a decent community, in a nice house, probably has a decent, I looked at his job, probably has a decent job, all of that stuff. Probably never, what happened here? And so then I'm trying to understand people, right? Like I get into wanting to understand. So my point to all of this is that I'm always curious about people, why they do things. And I'm always curious when things go, when they're good, when they're bad, like how we can be better, how we can show up better, what we can learn from something. And even in my own journey, I'm saying all that to say that the reason that I've been able to do the work that I do is because I've always been curious. I've always been curious at improving and understanding. When I get sick, I want to understand what I can do differently. How can I show up and contribute to this in a positive way? So, and that's what I think the lesson is for that. We should be like, be curious, be curious.
Curiosity is such a superpower. You can't be angry while you're curious. You can't be anxious as you're curious, because the curiosity, of course, you can't be curious when you're angry either. You can't be curious when you're anxious. So the first power is to be able to be self-aware, is to say, oh my gosh, I'm anxious about this, or I'm angry at this person, or I'm just doing this out of habit, or I'm just doing this because I'm with this group and everybody else is doing it. But then the second thing is to get curious. It's like, well, what could I do differently? Okay.
And why?
Or why am I doing this? And I'm going to stick a pin in that why question, but but the
Stick a pin in
why
it.
am I doing this? And that once we start thinking that the stress hormones that are kind of flooding our brains, they wash out over like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, and we're able to calm our brain and tap into our powers to be empathetic with people, to come up with new things, to think critically, to take in new information, to focus on what's really important to us. The reason why I wanted to point the pin in why is that why question, like why am I doing this? Why am I thinking this? Is a really good question for us to ask ourselves. But interestingly, it's a really bad question to ask other people.
Yeah, no, I know.
Because
I
that
know.
why question, when you ask it of another person,
Yeah.
basically what you're asking them is to double down on whatever their
Right.
reasons are. When we do it to ourselves, why am I doing this? We trigger our curiosity. When we say to a person,
Why'd you
say
do
to a kid,
that?
why did you hit that person?
Yeah.
Well, I hit them because they hit me. Of
Right.
course I have to hit them. And so the questions that we should ask other people are much more things like, what are you looking to accomplish?
Right.
What's your end goal? Or given that's your end goal, what you did was you hit another person, or whatever it is that you did that accomplish your goal? And in 99 times out of 100, it didn't. It said, oh, so I wonder, then what other things could you do that might accomplish your goal? And so it's those questions that open people up. But why am I doing this is a great question for us to ask ourselves.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. I know, because I've done that to my husband. It doesn't work. So no,
really,
I
because
agree
my
with you
wife has done that to me
100%.
too. So,
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And when I say that why, that is for me, because I do that to myself. I'll be like, why did you do that, Jennifer? Or why do you keep doing that? Or like,
Yep.
why do you, like, I was just telling this story. I was like, I put a post up on Friday, and I actually, most of what I put in there, I've talked about openly before, but there were two pieces in there that I added, and I was trying to create depth in my story about how I feel like, because I was diagnosed with like two really weird, rare, disorders in my life. I was in an abusive relationship and, early in my, my early part of my, I'd say early, like in my early 20s. But I've been married now 29 years. So in a different relationship, but I was kind of trying to set the stage that the work that I do is that I feel like I've been chosen to give people, to give this hope. Like I always knew that, like I've always been a talker, that for some reason upstairs somebody believed that I needed to use my voice to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
But I was telling this, what I was talking about is that when I created the post, I started to hesitate, I put it out, and then over the course of like a few hours, I kept wanting to go in and like, take it out, take it out. And because I was feeling like vulnerable, like I had to share, like I didn't want to share it, like it was a part of me I didn't want to share. Forgot where I was going to go with this, when Mitchell. I forgot what I was going to tell you about this, but anyways, there was a good story to this, that I put it out there, my story, and I didn't want, there was pieces of it I didn't want to divulge out there. Oh, I know what it was. But then I said, no, just leave it alone, because somebody needs to hear it. And the point that it was the why. That's where I was going with this. I kept asking myself, why do you keep doing this? Like, why do you keep wanting to like erase it? And it's because I was having to be vulnerable, and I didn't want to be that vulnerable. I didn't want to put all that out there, but then that was my head telling me that. But at the same time, then I'm talking to this guy on this podcast, and he's like, people connect to authenticity and vulnerability. And he was telling about this story about this woman, how she shared something about how when she was in China, she grew up cooking, and, and that she'd been bullied and stuff. And that became her story.
Yep.
And really led into what she's doing now. So my point to that is the why was that I asked myself, why are you doing this? And I had to go back and look at what I was thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that first step you're talking about, just that self-awareness.
The self-awareness.
I don't ask why of anybody else. That was
another aspect of that you brought up is that as human beings, we also have this part of ourselves that tries to keep us from taking risks.
Yeah.
And psychologists call that our part X. Okay, so but the way it does it is it makes us miserable. So you
Yeah.
put out this story and it starts making, why do you always do that? You put things out there that nobody wants to hear it. You're just embarrassing yourself, right? And then when you think about, well, maybe I should take it off, that same part X is like, well, there you go again. You can't stick to something, you
Exactly.
have
It's
a good story, you
confirmation
just take it
bias.
back, okay? And then you say, well, something, maybe I'll just take it off for a while and think about it. And then it's going to attack you again. It's just going to say, well, there you go again. You can't make a decision. You're always like that. That's why you're never going to succeed. And whatever it is that you think that you want to do next, that your part X or each of us have it. Our part X is there making us miserable. If we can, again, be self-aware and say, something, these voices that I'm hearing in my head, or these admonitions about what I'm going to be doing, that's not me. That's not truth. That's just my part X trying to keep me safe by making me miserable. I can use it as a little bit of a warning to say, hey, something, I'm getting out here and trying something new. But I can also say, it's just my part X and I can overrule it. And that's really what you did. You put those out there. You had your part X. It was a battle for you to say, no, I'm going to leave them out there. It becomes a lot easier when we can label that as say, that's not the truth. That's not me saying this. That's just my part X. That's what it will always do. And I don't have to listen to it.
I like the part X. And yes, you don't know how many times I did that on Friday, Mitchell. I went in there, I'm like, I'm taking it off. I even hit the edit button and was like, I'm just gonna scratch out part of it. And then I was like, I finally said, damn it, stop it. Just stop it. Stop it. Put it down. Put it down. Well, now it's over with because now we're on Monday. It's done now. But I'm telling you, we all do it, right? And I love that you said your part X because I'm going to start using that now. I mean, I always do. I mean, I will tell myself to pause, and I'm learning, like I said, that pause is so important. When I start to do that, and if I keep doing that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sleep on it. I'm just going to sleep on it. And I totally forgot about it until you and I just talked about it. So I got up Saturday morning and completely forgot about it. But as we were talking, I remembered that that's what I was doing on Friday. I was going through that whole warfare of, do I put this out there, and then I'm like, do I delete it? Do I leave it? Do I delete it? And then finally I'm just like, you know what, just sleep on it. And, so I love that you said the part X because I'm gonna start using that when I start hearing that.
That post is you get a lot of responses because that post came from your heart, and it was, and I'm sure it was very powerful.
Yeah, I do better. But it's funny. It makes so much sense though when you think about like, social media and stuff, because sometimes you'll look at things and go, somebody put that out there and they're just getting like a lot of traction, and you look and you're like, why? Right. And it's a lot of times it's just because they put something raw and authentic, and you're looking at yourself going, I would never do that. Right. Like, I'm not going to do that. And that's why sometimes it's the funniest thing when I do work, like the times when I really think things through and put out a crafted message or something, it doesn't go anywhere. And then when I'm just Jennifer and I throw something out there and then people like it because it's raw and authentic and I didn't overthink it, and, and so, but I love the X thing, and I'm gonna remember it that way now. And so I will be like, next time I'm doing that, I'm be like, hey, that's part X telling me, nope. We're gonna be a different person.
It's not me, just my part X. Yep.
I love it. It's kind of like I had a gal on my show a while back, and she was in marketing, and she said something really funny, and it just sticks with me. She said, it's Christine Blasdale, by the way, if you want to go back and catch it. But she said, we go in to sell, and we offer people a stapler when they want a sandwich. They don't need a stapler. They need a sandwich because they're hungry.
Right.
And so I think about that when I do another piece of my marketing. I'm like, what are we offering? Are we trying to offer a sandwich when they need a stapler, or a stapler when they need the sandwich? Let's get it right. So anyways, I love this.
You also brought up, that you're in a very good relationship now. And so that can be also incredibly powerful because, my wife and I both speak the same vocabulary. We understand these terms, and we can see it in each other. And once we have the terms, it's like she can look at me and she can say, is that your part X talking? Or are you in limbic? Because we both, if you can build a community around you that has the same language and knows these same techniques, you can use it to prop each other up.
Yeah.
And then you get, the power of the group, and it's just such an amazing feeling. First of all, you doing it with somebody else is to see, your husband or your child or a friend who's stuck, and you have the same vocabulary and say, something, I think you're in limbic right now. Maybe
Right.
you should take your pause, and what can you do to be curious? And you're doing that, and so you get the jolt of the happy hormones, and you see the effect that they have on you. But then, we're people. We don't see what we're doing all the time. No matter,
Right.
no self-awareness is gonna be perfect. So we're doing something, and to have another person be able to say, something, Mitch, I think you're in limbic mode right now. Maybe you should like take a couple deep breaths and see what you can get curious about. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I can do that.
Yeah, I love it. I could visualize in my house, we'd be all running around going, you're in limbic mode, right? But you know what? Listen, it's so good because there's a term. There's a term. So now it's not like you're being crazy right now or you're being emotional right now, right? It's a term. And so now it also sort of reduces some of the emotional, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
there's a different, it's kind of like you saying that why, like you go to somebody and you reframe the question versus why are you doing that? That's kind of accusatory, right?
Yep.
Versus, like, how is this showing up for you right now? And if you looked at it, like, it's just a different approach, right? So I think having it as a term takes some of that emotion off of it too. And now everybody's like, oh, that's the term. It's like you're in the red zone or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I like
Yep.
it. I think it's great because I think it reduces some of that stress too. And if everybody understands, because I think self-awareness is like a muscle, right? Like I always kind of think of it like CPR sort of. You're
Mhm.
not ever going to be 100% always in tune to everything
Well,
you're
you and
doing.
I are, but nobody else is.
Right. That's right.
Right.
Right. But my point to this is that the more you do it, the better. Even like when I don't always act the way, like there will be times I don't always act appropriate and I will feel guilty afterwards. I will actually have like bad, oh, I hate it because I'll be like, oh, that was not my, like last week I got upset because one of my people in my networking group was wanting to step down and I was frustrated. I wasn't upset that she was stepping down. I was upset that we had a meeting the very next day. We weren't prepared. And I don't like walking in when I have people counting on me and we're not prepared. And so I felt bad because I wasn't making her feel, I just was frustrated. So the next day I saw her and she left before I could talk to her. So she sent me a text message and I said, listen, I just want to apologize if I made you feel bad because that was not at all my intention. I was just frustrated because of what was going on. And we ended up having a dialogue the next day. We had a conversation. It's fine. We worked it out. We're friends. It's all good. My other friend was like, did y'all kiss and make up? But I tell you, it's a difference of that having that self-awareness that even if you do mess up, you can reflect and go, okay, I didn't act in the best manner, but I'm mature enough and have the wisdom enough to say I can own that and be okay saying, hey, look, I'm sorry I didn't show up in the best way possible. That is not me.
Yep.
I apologize.
Right. You go back to integrity and you don't beat yourself up.
Exactly. And I did it. And we're over it now. And it's all good. I felt bad that day. I felt bad. I was mad. I was like, I had 3 days of just being like, I was like, and then we had a conversation about Wednesday. It was over. But the point I love about all of this, I think, like you said, it's just that self-awareness and it's that curiosity. And it's just really taking some ownership of how we're showing up and, how we because everything we do, I truly believe impacts somebody around us in some way. And then they impact other people. And so whatever we do to that one person, how this conversation you and I are having today is making a difference in somebody else's lives right now.
Yeah. I hope, somebody hears this and they're thinking, well, something, I was about to have this argument with somebody or I was about to self-doubt myself, but something, I realize that's my part X, or I can take this pause and how do I get curious about this? And boy, if this conversation allowed like 4 or 5 people to be able to do that, we've done some good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to ask you like this one thing that we're going to tell people. We've said all these great things right now. So what's the one thing we want to tell them to do if they find themselves in a moment of maybe disagreement, conflict? We just want to tell them what do we want to tell them to do? Pause. What do we want to tell them to do?
Well, so if you're in a point of disagreement with another person, the first thing is to be aware that you yourself are contributing to this disagreement and that you can change. So if you're thinking that in this disagreement, what you need to do is convince the other person that they're wrong, you're in your survival mode and you're not going to reach an agreement. You're not going to move forward. So the first thing is this self-awareness, something that's not just them that's wrong. It's us that are in this dynamic. Then take the pause, and then it's like, well, how could I be curious about the situation rather than judgmental about the situation? And so asking yourself, well, what could I get curious about? How could I connect with this person? How could I find out what they really value? How could I find out what we both have in common here? But something that allows you to connect with the other person, establish and empathy, and then move forward after that.
I love it. I know we kind of said all that in several different ways, but I like that you just
Yeah.
kind of put that in succinct format for somebody, because you did say it a little bit differently that time, how, like taking the ownership of you've said that overall message, but just really, I'm contributing to this. I am contributing to the situation, because I think so often when we get into disagreements, whatever, and I think that's why we have so many people, even in the world now, just immediately going into this shutdown, because we immediately think in disagreement, you're wrong, I'm right. Right. And you said that in the very beginning, just because it's this doesn't mean it's right. Just because it doesn't, your world and my world, we're all right. Everybody's right. Whatever we say is right.
The survival parts of our mind.
Yeah.
It is very binary. It's either good or it's bad. You're either right or you're wrong.
Yes.
But real life isn't like that. Real life is complex.
Exactly. It's not black and white. You're exactly right. And that's where we've got to get away from, is that binary. There's a middle. There is a middle area to everything. That's why I would say, even in disagreements, there's that story, and there's the story in the middle that's probably the real story.
On the other hand, if my wife and I disagree, obviously I'm the right one and she's wrong, right?
You
will support me on that, right?
I love it. I love it. It's all good. It's all good. No, I think it's great. I think what you're doing is amazing. I love it. I really love that you're going into the education system, because I feel like if we could, and that's one of the things, even when we started Starter Girl, we were partnering up with some charitable foundations, and I was really trying to get into the youth space, because I know that that's such a impressionable age, and that's where the influence is created. It's hard. Adults have to want to change. They have to want to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Children, I feel like, are still moldable. We have the ability to come in and help them mold and grow before they get set in their ways, right?
Even as early as kindergarten. We have, kindergarten, the teachers of the classes are reporting, something, in my kindergarten class, kid gets angry, and then he looks at me and says, I should do some box breathing right now.
Oh, I love it. Can you imagine if all the kids said that? I need to do some. It's just funny. I was just telling somebody yesterday who was one of my friends, she was talking about not being able to sleep from trauma. And I'm like, hey, so what are you doing before you go to bed? And she's like, well, I'm watching TV. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you want to put some blue lights on, or maybe try reading, or maybe do some box breathing before you go to bed. Might help. Go splash some cold water in your face, get your nervous system, regulated a little bit. She's like, I'm going to try the reading thing. She's like, I don't know about the breathing. I'm like, well, what did you try on that? Because you maybe need to do it more than once, try a little bit more of it. So can you imagine if we all had these tools? This is all the stuff, I'm actually a nervous system trainer. I'm certified in that too. So I talk a lot about that kind of stuff too, and believe in it. Again, it was something that I had to do for myself. I had to figure, because I was dealing with, when I was sick, I was dealing with a lot of dysregulation and having a lot of anxiety. And it was a festering, kind of like what you were talking about, that confirmation bias.
And it builds on each other, right?
Yes. Yep. I wasn't getting better. So I was having anxiety. Now I'm not getting, so it was like this circle of, adrenaline going crazy. And so I actually started studying nervous system regulation. I known some of it, but I actually went in and got certified in the process of that. So I'm all with you on that, but I think it'd be great if all of us, I know my daughter and my sister have plenty of stories to talk about in the education system. So I know they would welcome this in a heartbeat if all their kids would be like, yes, I did that behavior today. Maybe I should practice some box breathing next time.
Right. Yep.
It would be great, wouldn't it? I love it. I love it. Well, Mitchell, if our audience, let's say somebody in here, maybe somebody listening to this wants to pick up a book, they want to learn about the course, they want to follow you, get in the know of what your work is and all of this, where do we want to send them?
It's really hard. So I don't know if people will get this, but mindshiftingwithmitch.com.
Mindshiftingwithmitch.com. I like
Right.
it. Awesome.
And from there's links to the 2 books that are out now. There's links to the courses. I do a newsletter, so you can sign up for the newsletter. I try to do tips about mind shifting, relating it to things that are going on in the world. So they can do that. They can get in contact with me, or if they're in contact with me also, there's either myself or a bunch of other people who could talk to organizations about, being more resourceful, being more resilient, and or being more collaborative.
Perfect. We'll make sure too, when we get the show notes put together, we always put the links in there so they'll know how to find you and stuff. I'll make it so. It's been so much fun. I appreciate your, the conversation and the wisdom and the knowledge, and want to, just congratulate you and wish you much success. Continue doing your thing and inspiring our younger generation and whomever's willing to listen, right? Like whoever's willing to open the door to you and allow you to come in. So,
I try to do my part, and obviously you do your part, and we're both trying to make the world a better place.
That's right. One person at a time, right?
Yep.
One open ear at a time. That's what I say. So it's been great. All right. And of course, to our audience, we love you, appreciate you. Hope you found this episode both inspiring and informative. And of course, if you did, you know what to do. All the things: like, share, comment, put it out there so that we can keep sharing all of this fabulous content with you. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.